We have at this point 80% of the women who've gotten the shot in the first 20 weeks of pregnancy will miscarry, 80%. The number of stillborns is up astronomically. In Waterloo, Ontario, you expect 5 a year. They've had 66. In Vancouver, they had 13 in one day. You got to decide what world you want to live in. You can pick the matrix. This is a free will planet. It's a gangster planet, but it's still a free will planet.
Welcome to Your Health Reset, where we address the real root causes behind health issues today to get you rapid results on your health journey so you can be who you came here to be, mind, body, and spirit. I'm your host, Sinclair, survivor of complex chronic illness, expert on resolving root causes, and co-founder of Detox Rejuvenation and Meditation RX. Let's get started. You're about to listen to a really intimate conversation with my amazing friend, Dr. Christiane Northrup, and myself. Dr. Northrup is a visionary pioneer in women's health. She's a board-certified OBGYN with more than 30 years of clinical experience. She's also the best-selling author of many game-changing books that really changed the conversation for women's health around the planet. She's been named a part of Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul 100, a group of leaders who are using their voices and talent to awaken humanity. And she has become internationally known for her pioneering work in reimagining how we can have a relationship with our bodies and participate in our own healing journey and be in the driver's seat. Most recently, in the last couple of years, she has fearlessly taken on this myopic conversation that we have had about health as a collective on this planet. And she and I dive into how we actually got here today in all of its complexity, starting with the infamous Flexner report over 100 years ago, and how the medical system has systematically eroded our relationship to our own bodies as humans, and what we can do to take back control of that today. So I can't wait for you to listen. She's a force of nature. She's really one of those people that is helping us wake up to our true power in this time. Enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of Your Health Reset. We're here today with Dr. Christiane Northrup, one of my very favorite people. It's been a minute, but we are here today to have a deep, intimate conversation about medical freedom and the path forward for protecting your body sovereignty and really embracing your own personal power. Welcome, Chris.
So much fun to be here and to see you again. The last time we talked, I think it was about which water distiller do you get? And, how many lemons are we going to squeeze per day? And that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And vaccine adjuvants and, all sorts of fun things.
Well, yeah, that's right. We met around the time of the big mandate situation in our state. The predictive programming for what was about to come that no one could possibly have imagined, except that if you're me and you've been on the front lines of holistic medicine for decades, you go, oh, I get it. Been there, done that.
So let's talk about that because our audience is highly sophisticated and they really understand that we need to protect our own body sovereignty and that, this may not be our fault, but it is our job to fix it and protect our own health and protect our families. And we want to create a shared vision for the future. So in order to do that, let's talk about how we got here, how the medical sick care system actually put all these possibilities into place. And then we'll talk about how to fight it.
Let's go back to about 1910. Mm-hmm. And that is when John D. Rockefeller started the Flexner report and paid doctors bazillions of dollars to go out and shut down the schools of herbology, naturopathy, homeopathy, women's medical schools, osteopathy, chiropractic, all of that. They invented the word quack. And the Flexner report, basically, written authoritarianly, actually shut down systematically everything that wasn't a patentable medicine. Now, remember this, everybody, because this is very, very important. You cannot patent anything that is naturally occurring. Fresh air, clean water, clean soil, a bioidentical hormone that exactly matches what's in the female body, made from soybeans and yams. You can't patent an herb. And so what they did was they created the American Medical Association, Later, when people started to get sick from the pharmaceuticals made from petroleum products, all of which could be patented, they founded the American Cancer Society. And thus began the situation that we currently have, which is the disease care system, where you don't want anyone healthy. You want people constantly on edge to be checking, am I okay? Am I okay? Am I okay? So we have the yearly physical. Ooh, we caught it early. Even though we know that the body produces cancers every single day, but we have within us C4 and C8 lymphocytes that repair DNA. And so the natural medicines, sunlight, fresh air, hope, education, not indoctrination, education, grounding on the earth, which decreases cellular inflammation, vitamin D, all of that, those things began to be labeled what health nuts do. You're a health nut. My Aunt Harriet, who was a pediatrician at the time when there were very few women doctors, gave me a book on my way to medical school called The Nuts Among the Berries. And she thought my father and mother were health nuts. She and my uncle, the MDs, knew what health was about. When my uncle died, his kitchen cabinets were full of pills of phenobarbital. Phenobarb was the precursor to Xanax, Zoloft, Valium, and so on. If you feel bad, just pop a pill. Judy Garland, prime example. That's the world in which all of us interested in natural health have been swimming for decades. So if you used, let's say, vitamin C, high dose vitamin C, as put forth by Andrew Saul, and also a Dr. Cathcart, an orthopedic surgeon, who I had the pleasure of hearing years ago, points out that when you take vitamin C to bowel tolerance, meaning loose stools, and you saturate your system with vitamin C, virtually nothing can live in your body that is infectious. I knew that Linus Pauling, who had won 2 Nobel Prizes, was, of course, completely above reproach until he started to study vitamin C. And then he was a quack. So the way this works, let me give you the big picture. We have had a pharmaceutical, medical, industrial complex here. Remember Eisenhower in his last days, beware the military industrial complex. What most people don't know is the pharmaceutical industry has been a huge part of this. And anyone who's come up with anything that didn't involve a pharmaceutical, I cannot remember his name, but the man who pointed out that homocysteine was a big problem with heart disease and recommended, methylation pathways. He lost his professorship. I think he ended up his career in a backwater down in Connecticut somewhere. Well, there are dozens of those stories. I mean, we could start with Emil Semmelweis, who said, hey, why don't you wash your hands after dissecting these corpses before you deliver a baby? Back in the day, you were much more likely to survive childbirth at home than in the hospital. And then there's also, of course, Suzanne Humphrey's incredible book that I would recommend to everyone called Dissolving Illusions. Suzanne Humphreys was a nephrologist here in Maine. She was famous because she managed to figure out how to dialyze kidneys when we had a really weird situation in a church, a little church in northern Maine, where a parishioner was lacing the coffee with arsenic. It was international news. So Suzanne had to figure out as a nephrologist, how do you detox arsenic? But at the same time, what was happening is everybody in the hospital where she worked was getting a flu shot when they came in. You could come in bleeding to death, broken leg, heart attack, didn't matter. Everyone got a flu shot when they came in. That was hospital policy. And she ended up dialyzing a lot of these people. Now, this is a straightforward nephrologist. This is not a holistic doctor. And so she, seeing that people are losing kidney function from some of the toxins in the flu shot, she goes to the chief of the hospital, the medical director, and says, could we just wait on the flu shot until these people are healthier because their body's already compromised. And then we are injecting thimerosal. And by the way, the current flu shot also contains mercury. Everybody doesn't need to be listed on the vial because it's too little. It's just a small bullet. So anyhow, she goes to the head of the hospital and he did what everyone does. And I want to point this out because I experienced it when I testified before our legislature about mandating 72 different shots by the age of 18 in all of the daycare kids, the nursery school kids, college, all of it. And here's what happens. A medical authority gets up there. This is the mass hypnosis, and a CD or a tape deck or a flash drive gets stuck into here. And what comes out is vaccines are safe and effective. The side effect is less than 1 in a million. They are the most incredible public health effort ever perpetrated on humanity, ever perpetrated. Well, that's the truth. But they have saved millions of lives. No other public health intervention has done as much as the vaccine protocol. And then if you're old enough, you always have to put on Facebook, well, what about polio? And then they remember a classmate who got polio without, of course, really doing the deep dive where you find out that by the time the polio shot came in, the epidemic was over. And the polio epidemic curve follows perfectly when they rolled out DDT.
Exactly. The data is undeniable. The connection between DDT
undeniable. And polio. But what we've all been trained with is that these childhood illnesses are so deadly that the only way around it is something in a needle. And as my colleague, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny says, I have spent 20 years just trying to get parents to question what is in the needle that's going into their kids. Well, then what did they do? They rolled out all of the adult shots. So now when you go in to any conventional doctor's office, are you up to date on your shots? Pneumonia, pneumovax, shingles, flu, are you up to date? And then this started to creep in my profession in the early 90s, giving pregnant women in the second trimester a DPT and a flu shot. And I, by that time, was not practicing obstetrics. And again, it came in so quickly and no one questioned it. The same with Gardasil. I was on the Oprah show in 2006. Gardasil had just come out, and there were many people in the obstetrical group saying, why are we doing this? You can find HPV on pap smears from the 1950s. Just because HPV is there does not mean it's going to cause cervical cancer. Well, that didn't matter. The big deal was we were going to prevent cervical cancer, and the rollout of the campaign was amazing. I won't be the next one, or whatever it was. I won't be, I'm one less. Marketing. Amazing marketing. When I can tell you from years of experience, they were never going to be anyone who had this. So at the same time, this is the double speak. In my profession of OBGYN, they came up with the HPV screening test and then said, well, then you don't need a pap smear until you're 30, because most of these abnormal pap smears in your teens or in your 20s are from HPV. And here it is, folks, 90% of those go away on their own. In other words, if you've been told that you have mild dysplasia, CIN1, on your pap smear, it's going to go away on its own. And if it doesn't, you got an immune problem. You don't have an HPV problem. There are over 100 strains of HPV, and basically everyone has had it. So the germ theory of disease needs to be questioned as it was questioned by Antoine Beauchamp in the time of Louis Pasteur. It is not.
Louis Pasteur even recanted that. He was such a hack.
Yeah, he was a hack. But notice, he, like Thomas Edison, is the one we remember. We don't remember Nikola Tesla. Well, we do because of the car. So I have been talking about this forever. It's in every book of mine. Vaccines are neither 100% safe nor 100% effective. It's in every book I've ever written. Then I testify in March of 2020 in front of the Maine legislature after having 3 New York Times bestsellers, 8 public television specials, on and on and on. And then I was interviewed in the fluffiest piece I've ever done for Maine Women's Magazine. And I talked about dancing Argentine tango and wanting to get married. And I was with the love of my life, who happened to be a World Health Organization, Harvard-trained PhD epidemiologist, who's the one who told me to go up there to Augusta and testify. So my testimonials, which are a matter of public record, were all vetted by a professor of epidemiology. Thank you very much. Okay. And I also said to him at the time, wow, you and I have this amazing relationship, and you have the kind of brain that has persecuted me my whole life. But it was the wind underneath my wings. So this comes out. The next thing you know, on Facebook, I am being attacked beyond anything I ever could have imagined. Here, this was fun. Mainer magazine exposes the causes of far-right hate in Maine. And then, this was fun. This was a couple of yoga teachers. This is actually one of my favorites. I don't know what they were talking about, but I beat out Kelly Brogan because okay, so imagine, we have over here intensity of conspirituality content and techniques, and down here, red pill commitment and transparency. Dr. Kelly Brogan disputed the validity of the germ theory and claims mask mandates are a psyop. I apparently openly used QAnon keywords and themes. But I've since learned there's no such thing as QAnon. There's Q, and then there's Anons. I talked to the publisher of some of my books around that time because they weren't promoting anything that I had ever done for the past 30 years, because now I was canceled by a lot of the people that I'd worked with for a long time. And this guy says to me, you need to come out against QAnon. I said, yeah, but I don't even know what QAnon is. And I learned in my media training, you don't come out against anything. It's like Richard Nixon. I am not a crook. So the only thing anyone remembers is I'm a crook. I'm a crook. I'm a crook. You come out for something. And all I was coming out for is medical freedom and informed consent. How many consent forms for surgery have I sat with my patients and filled out? All of them, informed consent. Suddenly, we're doing things that make no sense. 6 feet of social distancing. Wow. 4-year-olds running, giving me wide berth out in the woods because their parents were so terrified. And then we learn about Operation Paperclip, Mockingbird Media. We learn about all of this stuff on Good Friday of 2020. I watched Out of Shadows Official with Mike Adams about Hollywood and about that whole thing. And then I listened to Fall of the Cabal. And again, as a holistic doctor who's been in this for a long time, I said, oh, this all makes sense. I see what we're doing here. Now, most people did not see that. They go along. If I have these things, I will be safe. If I do these things, I will be safe. You've got to give these demons credit. You've got to give them credit. People, for my whole career, it's yes, but we need the news from mainstream trusted sources. They made sure that the trusted sources are the least trustworthy sources on planet Earth. And that would be NIH, not invented here, CDC, COVID death cult, and FDA. I mean, these are all, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. points out in his current book on Fauci, these are captured agencies, and they've been that way for a long, long time. So I don't want
the media itself is sponsored by, the various Gate Foundation initiatives. If you're going through journalism school on a Gates Foundation scholarship, and then your organization, your media center that you end up working for is also heavily sponsored by them. And then your program itself is sponsored by Pfizer. What are you allowed to say? It's no different than the church controlling what we were allowed to say and persecuting wise women and saying this is the only way to think about your bodies. You're not allowed to take control of your bodies. It's just same story, different century. The Flexner report is just the Rockefeller version of what the church did to us for centuries, right? So you have to fundamentally think about, are you going to take responsibility for your own health and seek out your own answers? Or are you going to wait to be told what to do?
There it is. And what happened for many, many people, because of the fear, they became addicted to fear. And this is a very real thing. So you have to get your hit of fear. So you tune into the news to tell you what to do. This is also, by the way, the duck and cover. If you went to elementary school during the Cold War, they would tell you this Cold War is going on and we could have a nuclear bomb at any moment. And so, if you hear the siren, get under your desk, duck and cover. Just keep the population controlled by fear. So what I say to people is you can cut off the fear porn. Just don't look at it. I don't look at YouTube videos. We have now at this particular point in history, we have some real deep state players coming around saying that this was a psyop from the beginning. So the way I see that, I want to give you a way to think about it, everybody. And I won't name their names, but they're people that I can't look at, but they're now saying the same thing that I have been saying. Here's the way I see it. Someone said to them, okay, the gig is up, buddy. We can either hang you in public and your entire family will go down in infamy, or you can play on our side now. You can tell the truth and use your credentials. And so we're seeing that now in a big way. So those of us who have been saying this thing forever, we can't get on Joe Rogan or any of that stuff. Not that I care.
You can't even be on a social media platform.
No, for heaven's sakes, I can't even be on Instagram. But now suddenly, okay, so the tide is turning. Why? Because a critical mass of us are finally no longer afraid to speak up. Now, I haven't been afraid to speak up from the beginning. I mean, when I first wrote Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, I had dreams that someone was in my house and was going to kill me. I had to walk through a wall of fear. You can ask, my daughters, I would wake up screaming, and they were little. So anyone who has ever truly awakened to the power, why do you think so many women have thyroid problems? 80%. It's because we have been, don't tell the truth. If you tell the truth, the world will fall apart. So now, though, we're finding our voice. So I walked through that wall of fire way, way, way back. And I also knew, by the way, for years that my health insurance wasn't worth a hill of beans. I knew that the only thing that maybe it would cover was me being hit by a bus. I never expected that health insurance had anything to do with health. And I have had patients for years, they'd come in and I'd say, you really want to take some B complex for that peripheral neuropathy. Well, I can't. My insurance doesn't cover it. Okay, that was in the 80s. All right.
Oh
that was okay. Come on. My insurance doesn't cover it. I can't.
People got trained really well. The Sinclair system wants customers, not success stories.
So well, the average 65-year-old is on 6 prescription drugs. My mother died this year, 95, not a single prescription drug. They didn't know how to get her into hospice when she needed it because she had no diagnosis, and no one could believe that she wasn't on any medication. So it took all of us to try to find a doctor who would sign the papers to put her into hospice after she broke her hip and was clearly dwindling. Finally. I mean, I thought that she would live forever because she comes from an era where maybe she had 2 shots and all the food was organic before the 1940s. because they didn't have the pesticides and the herbicides and the fertilizers and to kill all the microbiome of the soil. So
and for our listeners that are not familiar with that, go check out the episode about glyphosate, where we talk about post-World War II petrochemical boom, because there's a surplus of oil. They had to figure out what to do with it. Figure out if they reformulated it and sprayed it on our crops, the crops would look greener and more lush, but they were not actually more nutrient dense, and they were actually far worse for you.
It's like the Hollywood stars. It's like the people that we think look so good, and they are our idols, and there's really nothing there to nourish you. All right. It's the same thing. Up is down, down is up. So back to health insurance. I've always kept my own health records in my own house. Recently, they have instituted an AI program within the hospital chart system or the doctor chart system. Here's what it does. It's got little feelers and it goes through every chart, every whatever you've had. And as a doctor, I can tell you that we sometimes have written on the chart, rule out rheumatoid arthritis, rule out prostate problem, rule out. I mean, we were just questioning the differential diagnosis. Here's what the AI does. It goes in and lists every single one of those as diagnoses, even if you have never had it ever. Because in order to reimburse, they have to have a diagnosis. So there's no diagnosis for radiant health. There's none. One of my best friends is a swimmer, a master's swimmer, and he started to have weird palpitations when swimming. So he goes in to have a stress test, a cardiac stress test. And so he's on the treadmill, and his oxygenation and all of it was so good. They said, we don't know what to do with you. He needed more magnesium. Hello, that was it. And that often is it. But if you don't fit a CPT code with the right drug, then it doesn't count. I've recently discovered that they now have a code and a drug for narcissism. Now, by the way, narcissism, 1 in 5 people, writ large, there's a continuum. So there's someone who's a little self-absorbed, and then way up here, there's psychopaths. Psychopathy, no conscience whatsoever. Guess what, kids? That's what's running this psyop. Psychopaths. Now, you normal humans who are watching, you can't even imagine that this could happen, because what have you been taught to believe from all the movies? Because at the end, the psychopath, the narcissist comes around. Oh, please forgive me. I had no idea how much I was wounding you, but it's my own wound from childhood. And then they show you, like Big Little Lies, they show you the guy being beaten by his mother. So that's why he beats the crap out of his wife now. Not true. As George Simon, who wrote In Sheep's Clothing, points out, we have bought the belief that only hurt people, that only people who were hurt in childhood hurt people. Biggest psyop on the planet, biggest lie on the planet. Sometimes that's true. But with a psychopath, many are born that way, and they're born into these bloodline families. We're not going to do a deep dive because I don't want people to get stuck there. Here's what I want you to
I don't want people giving their energy away to the intersection or the traffic accident. I want you to ask yourself, what am I going to do with this one wild and precious life of mine? How can I take back all of my power right now?
Yeah. When this whole thing started with me, the New York Times wanted to interview me. I knew, Washington Post, CNN was at me all of last summer. Oh, we don't, and I was named one of the disinformation dozen. That was an honor. Wow. One of 12 people on the entire planet responsible for 70% of the actual information that's relevant on the internet. That was an honor. I thought, oh, good. A postmenopausal woman, living with her daughter with cats. I am that powerful. Yay. So anyhow, and so the psyop happened. And then I watched in our space, Sinclair, in our space, all of the spiritual teachers, all of the juice influencers, all of the yoga teachers starting to post virtue signaling with, I'm wearing my mask to protect you. These are people that I knew and were friends with. I'm getting my shot. Oh, and one real spiritual teacher talked about getting the shot and feeling how sick she was, but the ecstasy of doing the right thing for others. Well, there's two parts. There's the virtue signaling ecstasy, and then there is the rapture of hatred, which followed. The rapture of hatred. And, so I would watch my colleagues fall into one or the other, and I would see it on Facebook. We were having a Maine Stands Up fundraising event, and the two performers who were going to be performing at our solstice event started to be criticized on Facebook for aligning with our medical freedom movement. And so they backed out. And a friend of mine says, "Oh my God, being afraid of criticism on Facebook, that's so 2020. I had so many people cancel me in 2020, and my staff got really worried. My God, I'm burning your books. I've followed you for 30 years. What happened to you? Are you a psychopath now? Of course, it's just the opposite. I kept doing what I was doing, having my daily ministry till that got canceled. So we did the math, and that was in July of 2020. I lost 5,000 followers and gained 12,000. And that's how it's been for pretty much everybody, but it's different people. So I suddenly got all the people who actually pray for others, the people who identify as Christians. But I knew long ago, don't go into that medical care system. There's no health there. So I have someone I dance tango with who said she'd be my doctor of record, but now I have someone else who's totally in my camp. So, you go to the dentist, who's your primary care? Who's your primary care? God knows you can't get through life without a primary care. Where I'm going and you're going, we're all going, is we're going to become undocumented. No passport, no social security number. I've met some people who've had babies and the kids are planetary citizens. You can get a passport for that. You go into common law. That's a whole other thing. That's where we're going. We're not there yet. But in the meantime, you need to own your power. Okay, you got to understand, folks, it's fear or love. It's fear or love. The truth is in the love camp. The truth with a capital T is in the love camp. They are not your friends. They're living off your fear and anger. Yes, people are getting sick. Why? It's a bioweapon. We've been poisoned. Simple.
Well, and we've been inundated with toxins for decades and decades now. Yeah. So the terrain is fertile to be vulnerable, but it's never too late to take your power back, right? And the more you understand how you're getting exposed to things on a daily basis and how to reclaim your own sovereignty and get back in alignment with the planet, eat simple foods, drink actually clean water, remove these thought viruses. There's a word for this, doom scroll. And the people who do it, they say that laughingly, but they know, humans are still self-aware that we chip away at our own intuition and our own IQ with these toxic exposures. But it's actually really never too late to start reclaiming that.
No, and you see, this is a thing like a conversion reaction. This is so interesting. It always has been to me, where your divinity comes through sometimes at the most toxic time when you're ready to kill yourself. Do you remember that guy? There was a fascinating YouTube video where he was about to crash his own car into the wall in despair. And then he had sort of a revelation. Wait a minute. And his higher self came in. And then he began to describe the programming that he had been through. So that's all going to be disclosed. All of it will be disclosed. It'll make amazing movies. It already has. I mean, The Matrix Resurrection was great. Don't Look Up was great. That's just telling you what's going on. They're all documentaries. You've got to go into the higher vibrations of thought, the higher vibrations of living. And how does that happen? How do you do that? Through your intent, And it's like a muscle. You want to get bigger biceps or a stronger back? You've got to lift heavier weights. I would like people to know something. It is a cakewalk to go along with the mainstream narrative. I'm thinking about New York City right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, you virtue signaling idiots. You've got triple backed, you're wearing your mask, and you can go into any Broadway show. And, but the ticker is ticking. One America life insurance company just reports that deaths in 18 to 64-year-olds are up 40%. It's unheard of in human history, which means that they're going to have to pay out about 140,000 unexpected death benefits every month. And that's just the beginning. And those of us on the front lines of this have said from 2020 about the shot, it's a murder weapon. So, of course, the deep state did everything it could to silence us. But I want you to know that silencing happens inside your own head. There's a fascinating experiment done way back with a war veteran who had a cut between his corpus callosum. So the right and the left hemisphere, because of a battle wound, were disconnected. One hand would pick up a cigarette. The other hand smashed it out. Please do this. Don't do this. We have it within us. It's like the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder. So you got to pick which one you're going to pay attention to. So it all goes back to intention. Do you remember the movie about Ray Charles? Mm-hmm. And Ray Charles, they've got the scene where he decides, I'm not taking heroin anymore. I'm not doing it. He didn't get on Suboxone. By the way, Suboxone will keep you hooked forever.
Right.
You never get off of that.
People detox from that. That is no joke.
That is no joke. But Ray Charles did it on his own with what's called will. But there is no personal will without bringing in divine will. And as Michael Beckwith says of the Agape Church in LA, affirmations don't make something happen. They make something welcome. So right at this particular time, what everyone needs to do, you need to find like-minded people. And let me tell you this, I would stay away from the people who've always been your tribe, but you just want to fit in to keep your bona fides in that tribe. I want to give you a perfect example of what this must be like. RFK Jr.'s wife has a Christmas party out in wherever they are. And she puts on the invitation, you need to show a COVID test or you need to have a vax passport to come to our Christmas party. All right. This is a man who just wrote a book on Anthony Fauci, the deepest dive into the psyop that one could ever read, other than the global predators, we are the prey. And yet, so imagine RFK Jr., in his own personal life, he has a wife in Hollywood who's in the narrative.
Yeah.
Everybody listening to this right now has someone in their family who's in the narrative. I had a family member who said, well, I'm going to go to, and he said, my brother's house, and my wife's family, they're not buying it, so they're not going to go near. I said, yeah, but at least they're going to let you come home for Christmas dinner. You can go over here, and work with the unclean, but they're going to let you come home. Wow. See, this is what they've done. So what you need to do is you need to understand how powerful it is. This is very powerful. I heard a woman do this morning. She said, I called my family and I knew they were afraid to tell me that I couldn't come to Christmas dinner because I hadn't had the experimental biologic injected into me. So what I did, I took the high road and I said, I love them. I'm going to get them off the hook. So she called and she said, I know you're uncomfortable with me coming to Christmas dinner. And, two of her family are doctors, which means they're deeply hypnotized. And she said, so I'm going to make it easy for you. I won't come. And in the 4 days that she was banned from her blood family, she created a business growth opportunity that got her making now, $12,000 a week. She just said, okay, so this is the time that I'm going to, put it together. And I'm working with a team down in Florida where they had a similar approach. Okay, I'm not going to wait for permission to live my life. I'm going to build a bunch of my businesses now, my online business. And so this is a guy I'm working with on a dating site app for people with golden DNA. And so we're just,
I have a lot of people who are excited about that. Keep us posted.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I will keep you posted. Because here's why. Think about it. So here we are. We have at this point 80% of the women who've gotten the shot in the first 20 weeks of pregnancy will miscarry. 80%. The number of stillborns is up astronomically. In Waterloo, Ontario, you expect 5 a year. They've had 66. In Vancouver, they had 13 in one day. As an obstetrician gynecologist, I can tell you,
spontaneous abortion is up by several 100%.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a war on human fertility. Now, remember when I told you about patented, you can't patent a naturally occurring substance. Well, the Supreme Court in 2013 ruled that if you changed the DNA, you could patent it. The shot changes the DNA, and we have those studies. You got to decide what world you want to live in. You can pick the matrix. This is a free will planet. It's a gangster planet, but it's still a free will planet. Okay, so you got to decide.
And there's moments where you can choose, like you can have a singular choice point. And for many of us, that's what happened. I've had to walk away from my entire life a few years ago because I knew this was coming at an intuitive level. Yes. I am not living the life where I am prepared to be a leader for this. And everything fell away. And I thought I was going to die. But it does not have to be that dramatic. It can also be 1,000 tiny choice points. I'm going to choose love. I'm not going to engage. I'm going to walk away from the doom scroll. There's a lot of different ways to go about this. You are the one who's going to know what's right for you.
Yes. And for some people, by the way, that's a fake vax passport. Okay. I'm going to go to the Knicks game. I'm going to go to the shows. I'm just going to show them my fake passport. I got to get home to England or whatever it is. Okay. I understand that. I don't actually want to even play in that arena any more than I have to. I fly a lot. So I'm fine with the, okay, fine. I've got a mask that I can breathe with. It's the dumbest thing in the, and I've noticed how they've changed things. I met a flight attendant from American. She said American has given out 1,100 exemptions. She said United is the one where that's run by a psychopath. So we've had 1,145% increase in pilot deaths in 2021. So you just choose. When I'm in an airport terminal just for fun, just to practice, I never wear a mask. And the only time I've ever been asked, could you put on your mask? Because I was getting something at Starbucks. And the person, whatever, could you put on your mask? Yeah. I put it on and I take it off as soon as I'm out of there. You choose the hill you will die on. And you don't give them the loose. You don't get angry. You don't, whatever, you walk away because there's so many more of us than there are of them. But I want to stress to you what spiritual authority looks like and feels like. And we humans have been tricked into thinking that we're not powerful. Now, everyone probably knows the book Power versus Force. Let me go over loving kindness. This is important. And I learned this from Dr. Mario Martinez.
Let's do that.
This is what's happened to a lot of the people who were our people. They've been taught, like the Tibetan Buddhist monks, to go right into loving kindness. Love your enemy, turn the other cheek. Well, here's the problem with that. From a biocognitive point of view, which was taught to me by Dr. Mario Martinez, who wrote the Mind-Body Code and started the Biocognitive Institute. When you have a cause to be angry because your innocence or that of another has been threatened. It's actually a cause of health to go into righteous anger. That is a smart thing to do.
We need to just pause here for a second because we have a lot of people in our self-awareness culture who are afraid to look at these difficult topics because they've been taught about the law of attraction and how it's basically only okay to be positive at all times and to face the truth, to actually join the resistance, to be a part of the force of light would be too uncomfortable. And you'd be, giving it power to even acknowledge its existence. And so they're laying down in a time when we should be standing up.
The deep state knows that. Okay, if you want to really see how this works, listen to the podcasts of Dirty John. OMG, it is the most illustrative example of how a psychopath plays on an extreme empath. Yes, it's extreme. It's extreme because I want you to see it. And that podcast begins, it's a true story, and it's told through the eyes of the LAPD. This guy shows up at his mother-in-law's house and says, I just murdered your daughter. And she said, I'm a Christian. And she went right into endorphin-drenched Delusionville and said, I forgive you. And then she raises a daughter who does the same thing. So she is cannon fodder for a narcissist and psychopath. So here's what
let's talk about real loving kindness if you're going to stand up instead of lay down.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to tell you what isn't real loving kindness.
Great.
And that is becoming a shit cake where you're just sugar-coated shit. So let's start there. And you can
That's memorable. That's good. Let's do that.
It kind of nails it, right? It nails it. All right. Like no one is real in my life until they've owned it. So here's what the monks do. Okay. The Tibetan monks that Mario worked with, because all these monks started to get diabetes. Let's be clear. This is medical. I'm talking medical. They started to get diabetes and he couldn't figure out why, because it wasn't like what they were eating. I mean, okay, you meditate and then you eat a baked potato and that's it for the day. That's probably not enough. They're not down at Dunkin' Donuts every day. It was because as the Chinese raped their nuns and burned their villages, they had been trained since childhood to go right into loving kindness. Mm-hmm. And their beta endorphin levels were through the roof. That's a feel-good hormone. When you feed rats sugar, they can keep their paws on a hot plate for much longer. It dulls the pain. Beta endorphin is like eating sugar, and that's why they got diabetes, because the beta endorphin was so high, they literally raised their blood sugar from this.
So we're talking about numbing ourselves to the truth because it feels better in the moment to embrace a spiritual precept.
That's it.
In a half-assed way.
And that's the virtue signaling. I'm getting a shot, and my intuition, which has been clouded by my spiritual teaching about loving kindness and the law of attraction and Louise Hay and a book called You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought. So now we've been brainwashed to not trust that anger, righteous anger, is a cause of health. And we all know toxic people who can't get out of righteous anger.
Right.
And then
there's a time and a place.
Yeah. So those people come into the movement with their pain bodies needing to feed. And then what do? They do the same thing that every freaking person with an unhealed pain body does. They split us apart. They split the movement because they need a war to fight all the time. You're not doing enough. We should be out there protesting. No. What you should be doing is what Mario taught the monks. You get angry and you feel your anger and you feel your rage and you move it through the system. Then you can afford loving kindness. So what I've done through this whole thing, I want to give you some examples of my righteous.
Yeah, let's get
anger.
practical.
I allow myself to entertain momentarily, thoughts about what I would like to do to my colleagues. I admit on podcasts, I name names, I no longer have any respect whatsoever for Dartmouth Medical School, Tufts New England Medical Center, University of Vermont College of Medicine. This is where I've gotten all my credentials. Maine Medical Center, CNN, Washington Post, the New York Times, Mother Jones, the Portland Press Herald, all these trusted sources that I have hanging all over the walls of my office. New York Times bestseller, Oprah 10 times, Super Soul 100. I no longer have any respect, nor do I give them my power anymore. I don't care. So when CNN calls, I won't answer them. Why would I? I know what they're going to do. Same with the New York Times. I'd get these lovely, sugary letters. I think this is summer 2020. I think it's time that we introduced you to a greater New York Times audience. I think that you deserve a profile in the New York Times. It's like, I don't think I do. Okay. Do you understand the power?
Wow, what a hook.
Oh, the hooks. They're so good at it. I grew up in Maine. I've followed your work for so long. You've really been a pioneer. It's time that the New York Times did a profile on you. I don't think so. Because I remember years ago that they changed the algorithm to get a New York Times bestseller. They were angry that self-help books like mine were outselling real literature. Okay. Right. So they changed the algorithm. And in order to have a New York Times bestseller in the how-to category, you had to sell 4 times as many books as the ones on the top there. And then I remember when Andy Weil's 8 weeks to self-help, that was a New York Times bestseller in the top list. That wasn't a how-to book. Isn't that interesting? 8 weeks. Doesn't that sound like sort of self-help? That's a program. But Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, which was a treatise and a manifesto of how you do actual health, that was in the self-help category. And I remember calling my editor at Random House and I said, how can this be fair? And she says to me, why does a dog lick its balls? I said, why? And she says, because it can.
Yeah. I mean, the system is pretty invested in keeping things status quo for obvious reasons. So let's wrap up with a few more practical tips of standing in your power and reclaiming our medical sovereignty together.
Okay. Number 1, stop watching mainstream media. Okay. If you want a Netflix movie like I loved Heartland and Longmire, do that. Do not watch any mainstream media. Do not follow Fox. Do not follow any of them. It's a waste of time and you will be programmed. Do not read the New York Times. Do not do this thing that people do, which is, well, I just want to check to see what they're saying. Don't do that. That's like, I just want to ingest a little poison. It won't hurt me, just a little poison. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, stop testing. Oh my God, this test has a 97% false positive rate. All of my doctor colleagues and I who are awake, we check the CDC to see what they're saying. It's gobbledygook. It makes no sense. So stop testing. Okay. 3, find your tribe. Find your group of people who are on your side. Nothing is more health giving than getting together with like-minded people in person, not on Zoom. Find the person not wearing a mask, go up to them, have a conversation, form a little group in your hometown. I swear to you, there's one other person, and start meeting regularly. We started Maine Stands Up. It was the best thing I've ever done. We started in my living room, and now we have 22 meetings around the state in communities. We got a signal group. We got a newsletter. Why? Because we did it, because we just did it. And I said to my friend who said, oh my God, I haven't been hugged in 6 months. It's back in 2020 when everyone's afraid that the governor is going to come to our door and shut us down. I said, Drew, find one person not wearing a mask. He goes to the grocery store. He sees one person not wearing a mask. The two of them run to each other and embrace, complete strangers. like a romantic comedy and become fast friends. That's how you do it. This is a grass level movement. Do not wait for some frickin' authority to tell you what to do. Do not break the seal until told to do so. How many standardized tests have I taken? Get out of that. And if you have kids in the school system, get them the frick out of there. Like tomorrow, get them out of there. You will not be able to deprogram what's going in there before the age of 7.
Right. There's an explosion of homeschool resources right now. There's so much more than there was even 6 months ago, guys. Listen to Dr. Simone Gold about this. There's a lot of people talking about how we have to get our kids back into the family system and out of the propaganda system.
Oh, and here in Maine, we've had a prom, we've got soccer teams, we've got a whole system. But here's the thing. It's not organized from the top down. You don't wait for, we're following the CDC guidelines, which means you're brain dead. COVID death cult, CDC. I like to just put it out there like farther than most people can go, and then they can titrate it back to where they are.
Chris, you are a delight. It's such a pleasure to talk with you today and to share this information with our audience. And I hope that people listening are taking away from this, a boost of courage, a reminder that you're not crazy if you're questioning the system. That means you're intelligent and you're connected to your own inner knowing. And nothing could be more important right now. Question us, question everybody, follow your own inner knowing and reclaim it every day. There's a lot of people who are doing the same thing. You are not alone. Let's stand together, and we love you all.
All right.
Thanks for listening. Go to detoxrejuvenation.com to find the links in the show notes to everything we covered in this episode. Please subscribe, review, and share with other humans who need this precious information. Let's help each other. Until next time, love, Sinclair.